Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I'm going to get started in a couple of minutes. And this is a preliminary hangout. I'm going to have another hangout shortly after this one with my brother, and we'll be talking about Freemasonry. He will be rebutting a lot of mythology that's out there about Freemasons and Masonry and all that kind of stuff. So I look forward to that discussion, and I hope that you all come back for that discussion. So I'm going to have this hangout for about an hour, and then right after this, I'm going to hang out with my brother. We're going to be talking about Freemasonry and, this whole mythology about, Freemasons being a part of the Illuminati and devil worshippers and, all this stuff, a lot of the myths that people hear. He's going to be talking about that. He's going to be explaining what Freemasonry is. Shout out to everyone tuning in. I see that I have a few people in here. Shout out to my man Water Sniper. Shout out to Soup Bone. Shout out to Full Circle. So there's a couple of things that I want to talk about in this Google Hangout. The first one deals with Cynthia G. As you all know, I did a video about some video that she did where she was basically saying that black men have never protected black women. Black men have never done anything to liberate black people. So I did a video about that, and I'll post a link in the description box and in the cards when I get a chance to, for those of you who have not seen that video. But today I was checking out her live stream, and this woman was basically trying to defend her nonsense, reiterating this ridiculous point that black men have done nothing to fight for the liberation of black people. One of the first things she does is basically dismiss all these people that people mention. People mention the slave revolts. They mention Marcus Garvey. They mention other people who have done things in the civil rights movement and all that kind of stuff. And this woman just dismisses all of that stuff and says that these people weren't fighting for liberation. And I hope that you all can bear with me. There's a thunderstorm outside, so you may hear some background noise. So I just ask that you bear with me. To start off this discussion, first I'm going to look up the word liberation and spell it out for you. So if you can bear with me, I'm going to do a quick Google search so I can pull up the definition for liberation so that we can deal with that first, because she tried to suggest that all these black men that have been fighting for black people, all of us, these black men weren't fighting for liberation in her twisted mind. So I want to address this first of all. Just bear with me 1 second. Just going to pull up the definition. I don't think I'm going to share my screen. But before I go any further, if y'all can let me know if you can hear me okay, I would appreciate it. Can you all hear me? Okay. Yeah, shout out to my man Psycho. Yeah, exactly. She moves the goalposts. So when you cite examples of black men fighting for liberation, this woman all of a sudden creates her own Cynthia G definition of liberation. The words, she says words are important. You hear a lot of people say this. Well, these words that people use have clear definitions, and we're going to go into the definition of liberation. Now, people may not like this definition, but it is what it is. So this is how they define liberation in the Webster's dictionary. It says the act of liberating, the act of being liberated, a movement seeking equal rights and status for a group. That's how liberation is defined. And then when you define the word liberate, it means to set at liberty, free, to free from combination, to take or take over legally or unjustly. That's the another aspect of it. And then they go into synonyms such as emancipate, enfranchise, enlarge, free, loose, loosen, release, unchain, unfetter. So those are some of the definitions of liberation. And when you look at what black men have done throughout history, you have to acknowledge that Black men have done things to liberate Black people. You know, this woman suggested that civil rights workers weren't fighting for the liberation of Black people. All those civil rights workers like Martin Luther King and all the countless other civil rights workers. This woman basically dismissed all of that hard work that those people did for the benefit of Black people to say that that's not fighting for liberation. When we saw the definition of liberation, and we'll go back to that definition. The definition includes a movement seeking equal rights. That's exactly what the civil rights movement was doing, seeking equal status for Black people. And, you know, this woman basically tried to say, well, they were just seeking to be accepted by white society. No, they weren't simply seeking to be accepted by white society. They were seeking freedom from oppression. And make no mistake about it. I mean, you have these people that have this distorted sense of reality and history, and they think that somehow we were living it up under the Jim Crow system. Jim Crow was oppression. Telling Black people where we can go is oppression. You know, being told what restaurants you can go to, being told that you have to sit in the back of the bus, being regulated to inferior schools, that's oppression. Telling people that, you know, no coloreds are allowed in this place. No coloreds, no dogs allowed. That's oppression. Telling Black people that they have to live in the worst part of town with the worst resources. Telling Black people that they have to drink from the colored fountain. That is a form of oppression. A system that would allow the lynching of Black people with impunity, that is oppression. Black people were lynched and nothing happened. We saw what happened with Emmett Till, where these people lynched that brother, where the criminals were identified and they got off, they walked, they got away with it. We saw that during Jim Crow times, the lynching of Black people was normal. It was like a sporting event, and there was no justice in sight. For years, civil rights organizations fought to have some kind of federal law to outlaw, you know, lynching and all that kind of stuff, to deal with the problem of lynching, but it continued on. That is oppression. And when Black people were fighting against those things, fighting against the denial of the right to vote, a basic human and civil right, we were denied that right to vote. And the fact that we were denied that right to vote just tells you how important the vote is. Being able to exercise your right to vote is an act of liberation, an act of freedom, an act of equal status and equal rights as a group, as a people. That is a form of liberation. So you had plenty of examples of Black people fighting for voting rights, fighting for equality, fighting to end segregation, which is nothing but oppression, fighting to end lynching of Black people. The open lynching of Black people. And we're going to get into this whole thing about progress and all that kind of stuff a little bit later. But the civil rights movement and all the Black men, the thousands of Black men that participated in that movement, they were fighting for liberation. Now you can say, well, you disagree with integration. You can say that, but you cannot say that that's not a form of fighting for freedom. I mean, people are living in a lap of luxury compared to what our elders and ancestors had to go through. And they take these benefits, these certain benefits that we live through today for granted. And they want to pretend like we're still living in under slavery. That's what they try to pretend. And we'll get to that in a second. Then you have, you know, this woman dismissing all these slave rebellions that African Black men participated in and led, you know, saying that that is not liberation. Fighting against slavery is the ultimate form of fighting for liberation. Again, the act, liberation is the act of liberating, the state of being liberated, the act of liberating, to set at liberty, free. Anytime you have slaves fighting against their oppressor, they are fighting for freedom. So you can't say that Black people didn't fight for liberation. And this stuff is common sense. It's just common sense. I mean, you got Nat Turner, again. You got Gabriel Prosser. You got all these examples, Denmark Vesey, you know, the Amistad rebellions, et cetera, et cetera. Black men fighting for liberation, fighting for freedom. Here you have black men on a slave ship fighting for freedom. Black men on a plantation taking up arms, fighting for freedom, killing their oppressor. Then you have examples of black men attempting to organize. That is trying to fight for liberation, despite her denials. I mean, you got all these black men. You got, you know, Frederick Douglass, you know, one of the most outspoken, eloquent voices for black liberation we've ever had. But this woman wants to dismiss all that. This woman, even despite all this black nationalist rhetoric that this woman spews, she even dismissed the UNIA, dismissed Marcus Garvey, a man who built the largest black movement in this country, a movement fighting for liberation. And liberation can take many forms. Liberation can be in the forms of civil rights. It can be in the form of nationalism in terms of people trying to separate and create a separate nation. That is a form of liberation. And the fact that she would dismiss all of that, dismiss all those thousands of black men. And the only reason why she had to dismiss those is because it rebutted her point. It destroyed her point about black men not making any kind of effort to fight against oppression or to fight for liberation. This woman basically said all black men did was fight to be with white women. I don't know why this woman is so obsessed with black men being with white women. I don't know what that's about. But this woman is clueless, dismissing the example of Marcus Garvey, dismissing the example of the brothers from the Black Panther Party, Huey P. Newton, Bobby Seale, and all the other countless brothers in the Black Panther Party who were fighting to be liberated from this capitalist system, who were fighting to be liberated from poverty, from police brutality, from discrimination, from economic exploitation. If that is not fighting for liberation, I don't know what is. This woman is delusional. This woman is lost. And the fact that you got all these black male simps and beta males flocking around this woman just tells you just how sorry a lot of our brothers are, unfortunately, man. I don't understand how any black man can be following this woman, or any black woman of sound mind and judgment could follow this woman. I mean, this woman is delusional. This woman is lost. This woman is clueless. Dismissing people like, you know, Marcus Garvey, one of the greatest. There would be no black nationalism if it wasn't for Marcus Garvey. There would be no red, black, and green, or talk about separatism and, you know, nationhood and Pan-Africanism if it wasn't for the brother Marcus Garvey. Now, I know that there were others that talked about nationalism to some degree, but Marcus Garvey is the father of modern day black nationalism. And for this woman to dismiss that brother tells you that she's not genuine. It tells you that she is not, quote unquote, pro-black, despite all this rhetoric that she spews on YouTube. You know, to say that black men haven't fought for liberation is to dismiss all the black men that died fighting for our liberation. It's to dismiss Malcolm X, a brother gunned down in front of his family while fighting for black liberation. It's to dismiss a brother, Martin Luther King, who was killed by an assassin, killed by the United States government. It's a dismissal of brothers like Medgar Evers, brothers like Bobby Hutton, brothers like Fred Hampton, all these countless black people who were killed, black men in particular, who were killed by this system. It is to discount them. It is to discount the great work of the Nation of Islam, despite my ideological and theological differences with the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam is an organization that fought for liberation and continues to fight for liberation in their own way. But yet you have this woman dismissing that, saying that black men have not fought for liberation. Pure nonsense. And the fact that people are taking this clown, this buffoon seriously tells you just how lost they are. You had examples of SNCC, you know, an organization led by great civil rights leaders like John Lewis. and later more militant type of leaders like a Rap Brown and a Stokely Carmichael, who would later go on to be named Kwame Ture. This woman is dismissing all that history. She's dismissing all those brothers and sisters who were fighting for liberation, who were locked up fighting for liberation, who were killed fighting for liberation, who were beaten fighting for liberation. This woman is a nut. This woman is delusional. This woman is crazy. And again, I don't understand how anybody can follow her. She's talking all this stuff about who didn't do what for Black liberation, dismissing these great Black men, when she's not doing a damn thing for Black liberation other than getting on here and spouting her nonsense, which is not even liberating a damn person, because she's spreading misinformation. Now, this other thing that she said is this, man, and I'll get to your comments before I go to the next section. So somebody said, who is little Bobby Hutton? Or they said, who is little Bobby? That's a brother who was a member of the Black Panther Party. He was the first martyr, the first Black Panther killed. The Black Panthers are the ultimate example of Black men fighting for liberation. Black men taking up arms, shooting at police that shoot at Black people. If that's not a fight for liberation, I don't know what is. What is this woman's idea of fighting for liberation? What the hell is she doing to fight for liberation? You know, how is belittling, berating, and emasculating Black men fighting for any kind of liberation? This woman spends more time bashing Black men than she does doing anything else. This woman is a disgrace. This woman is a clown. This woman is a joke. And any Black man that's co-signing her is nothing but a simp. Any Black man is allowing this woman on their platform, you know, this woman to spew her nonsense without checking her. You're a weak ass Black man, period. So yeah, so I had to point out that, you know, these examples of Black men fighting for liberation. The next thing I'll do is talk about this notion that she said, well, if Black men were fighting for liberation, they failed horribly. And that is pure nonsense. That is pure nonsense when you look at where we were and where we are today. There was a time when it was illegal for Black men to read and Black people to read. There was a time when Black people were sold as property in this country, when Black people were literally shackled and beaten and castrated, you know, where Black women could be raped constantly with impunity. Impunity, where Black families were ripped apart, you know, where they sold one child to this slave master, another child to that slave master, the father to this slave master, and the mother to that slave master. They destroyed the Black family. That's what we lived under during slavery. That's what our ancestors suffered from. Our ancestors crammed on those slave ships and tossed into the ocean, to the Atlantic Ocean, and fed to the sharks. Hundreds of thousands, some estimate millions of Black people died during the Middle Passage. We are not in that state today, but yet you have these race hustlers, these deceivers, these race pimps on here trying to pretend like we're in the same state that we were, like there has been no progress. There has been progress because there has been a fight for liberation from the moment that Black people came to this country. And that's something that this woman refuses to acknowledge. That is something that she tries to pretend doesn't exist. You can't tell me that we're in the same situation as our ancestors who were in bondage. You can't tell me that. Only a fool would say something like that. We're not oppressed to the same degree that our ancestors were. And that's because of struggle. It's because of a fight that our people were a part of. Of course, you had the Civil War and all that kind of stuff, but there would be no Civil War. There would be no outrage against slavery if it wasn't for Black people speaking out and striving hard against slavery. If it wasn't for the slave rebellions that brought attention to the issue. If it wasn't for the advocacy of people like Frederick Douglass speaking about the horrors of slavery, there would be no progress. So, you know, let's not be delusional here. And then you have, this woman is basically saying, well, we failed horribly. How can you say we failed horribly when today our condition is much better than it was under slavery? When today our condition is much better than it was under Jim Crow? Under Jim Crow, you saw what happened with Emmett Till. They came to that brother's house and just got him out of there, pulled him out of the house and lynched that brother, and there was no justice. And those killers walked in a blatant example of injustice. Back in the day, they used to string black people up just like you string up decorations for Christmas. That's what they would do to black people. Lynch black people open and in the public. And they would take photographs of the lynching of black people and sell them as postcards. That's what they would do. On a massive scale, thousands of black people were lynched and there was no justice. You can't compare that to the situation that we're in today. Of course, you have examples of police brutality, you have examples of hate crimes, but it is nowhere near the scale that it was. And to pretend like it is to deny reality. Our people were denied all kinds of rights during the Jim Crow era, denied the right to vote. Today, we can vote. Of course, there are efforts to suppress the black vote, but it's nothing like it was. There was a time when the Klan would terrorize black people for exercising their right to vote or for trying to exercise their right to vote. We don't have to deal with that today. There was a time when there were literacy tests that black people had to pass in order to vote. There was a time when there were poll taxes to prevent black people from voting. But yet, despite all those efforts to prevent black people from voting, to suppress black people's political power, you still have these imbeciles talking about our vote doesn't matter. If our vote didn't matter, those people would not go out of their way to suppress our vote the way they did back then and the way they do today. But the bottom line is this: there's no comparison to our situation today to what it was before. We don't have to sit in the back of the bus anymore. We don't see signs that say no colored people allowed. We don't see that stuff today. We're not forced to drink from the colored fountain. We have the right to vote. We have a Civil Rights Act. We have a Voting Rights Act. We have a Fair Housing Act. We have all kinds of civil rights laws on the books that enable us to enforce our rights in a court of law. So for someone to say that the fight for liberation has been a failure, a horrible failure, that's pure nonsense. All of those victories in terms of the passage of civil rights legislation, all those victories in court, Brown versus the Board of Education, although we haven't reached the full promise of Brown versus the Board of Education, we are much further ahead than we were during the 50s and the 60s and well before that period. So this fight for liberation has borne some fruit. This is a protracted struggle. There is nothing that's going to happen overnight instantaneously. We came here as slaves, and today we have record numbers of Black elected officials. We have political power in our communities. Although we can always gain more power, we need more power than we have, but we have far much more power than we did have. And that's as a result of the struggle for Black liberation. But yet this woman is in complete denial to that reality, to those facts. If you look at the education rates in our community compared to the education during the Jim Crow era, you will see that we have more educated Black people than we had during Jim Crow. You will see that we have less poverty than we had during the Jim Crow era. You will see that we have more CEOs and more entrepreneurs in certain aspects of our community than we had back then. But this woman wants to completely ignore that reality to perpetuate this narrative, this false narrative that Black men did nothing to liberate Black people. We are not all the way, obviously, we are not completely liberated, but we have made great progress from where we were before. And, that's a sign that we did not, quote unquote, fail horribly. which is, that's pure nonsense designed to perpetuate this false narrative that black men did nothing to liberate black people. So, that's all I have to say about this. This doesn't have to be drawn out. I think that, this woman had like this long 2-hour long hangout. That's not necessary to rebut her points. I think I made my points clearly in this particular video. And, I understand some people say, well, it's not worthwhile to debate this woman. I think false information needs to be challenged. The best way to respond to negative speech is with positive speech. The best way to respond to falsehood is with the truth. And that's what I'm doing now. I mean, this woman spreads all these, half-truths and outright lies, and yet people eat that stuff up because they're bitter. A lot of these women that watch her stuff are bitter black women that want to lash out at black men. She is a bitter black woman, bitter because of the way her father treated her, probably bitter because failed relationships, etc. And she's trying to take that out, project that on all black men. And that's fundamentally wrong. And if I'm going to challenge these men who spew misogyny, then I have to challenge these women who spew nonsense attacking black men. People really got me messed up if they think I'm just one to go along with anything somebody says just because they're a woman or whatever. That's nonsense. Again, I can't understand why these brothers are simping for her, man. All these people and these guys in her comment section, bigging her up. I mean, what the hell is wrong with y'all? Do y'all have a pair of balls? Have you been castrated or something? Where's your manhood, man? All right, man. So I think I said enough about that. I'm going to go through your comments and respond to them real quick. And then I'm going to move on to these next subjects before I do my hangout with my brother. I was trying to talk about these other subjects earlier today, but I just didn't have the time to do them justice like I should. So let me go through your comments. Yeah, I agree with you, Psycho. Something's wrong with her. So Wayne Washington said that Cynthia G is dogging black men as we speak. Shout out to Evan King, man. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Yeah, she did just have a hangout, and that's what I'm responding to, Walter Sniper, that hangout that she did. Because it was just absolutely ridiculous, and I couldn't bear to listen to it, man. Man, it's just something else. Yeah, as I said before, yeah, she moves that goalpost constantly. When you rebut her with facts, she wants to redefine terms in order to justify her nonsense. Just bear with me a second. So DJ Wiz said, I believe she has more hatred for black men than she does for white races. And I agree with that, man. Because lately it seems like she spent more time hating on black men than she does hating on so-called white supremacy. White supremacy, white supremacy. I mean, that woman is a clown to me, man. As I said in that last video, I'm not going to repeat what I said. Just bear with me. Yeah, so somebody said, well, how do people like Mary Brown and Angel Ramirez Jordan allow her to say these things in their presence without checking her? That's a good question, man. I mean, I know like with, what's his name, Angel, like he's moderating or whatever, and he's mainly not trying to be a part of the discussion that he usually has when he has those panels. I haven't watched him in a while, so I don't know what's up now, like what he's doing, like if he had one-on-one interviews with her or not. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question, man. I don't think any black man should have her on their platform without challenging her. If they're going to have her on their platform, they need to challenge her. I mean, that's one of the problems that I had with Phil from the Advice show. You know, he was talking all this stuff, and then while talking all this stuff about these women who bash black men, he has this woman, Cynthia G, on his platform, a woman who constantly bashes black men, and he doesn't even really check her about that. You know, he gives her softball, weak ass questions that she's going to easily knock out of the park. Peace to Nikki Justice 748. Shout out to you. Thanks for tuning in. And then DJ Wiz said, because she's a god. I mean, not DJ Wiz. Full Circle was responding to DJ Wiz's question. He said, because she's a god. Yeah, because, you know, you got these people that think the black woman is God, which is pure nonsense. You know, pure nonsense. I'm not going to go into like all the theology about why it's nonsense, but it is what it is, man. To me, like, when people say the black woman is God, they're either big pimping or big simping. You know what I'm saying? It's either the one or the other. You know, either they're trying to gas up those women so they can manipulate them and get something out of them, or they just weak ass black men sucking up to black women. It's either one or the other. You know, it's one thing to celebrate black women, which I do. It's quite another thing to bow down to them and kiss their ass and not hold them accountable for anything. You know, as my man, Psycho always says, you know, and I'm gonna repeat this phrase constantly, man. The simp culture is dangerous, man. All right, man. So let me continue going through these comments before I go on to these next subjects. Shout out to my man Voltron Black, one of my favorite YouTubers. If y'all not subscribe to you know, Voltron Black, y'all need to, man. The brother has the black screen and everything, but he's dropping some heavyweight knowledge on his channel, you know, about relationships and all that kind of stuff. So I encourage y'all to support him and his channel. And, you know, my man Psycho, you know, he has great hangouts. Support that brother too. Yeah, I'm not going to, I see that somebody says they disagree with my stance on voting. I'm not going to go into that right now. That could be a whole YouTube video in and of itself. I've done many videos on that subject, defending voting and, you know, supporting voting and all that kind of stuff. You know, at this stage, like, I think that if you're at the point where you're debating whether or not voting is relevant to black people, I think that you're clearly uninformed. But, you know, in the future, I plan on doing some more videos about that. And tell your girl, I mean, all y'all watching, any of her supporters here, tell her I challenge her to a debate, man. You know, as I put it out there on O'Shea, I challenge this woman to a debate about politics, about any of this stuff that we're talking about. I mean, this woman, I will destroy her in a debate. If we're talking about voting and the significance of it, if we're talking about this particular issue right here, dealing with black men and their role in the fight for liberation. Yeah, so let me continue on. Ryan James says Synthetic G is a witch and those betas are her flying monkeys. Yeah, man, that's how they be acting, man. They be hovering around her. Like, then that reminds me, I was watching this video. Hold on, let me just take a sip of this real quick. I was watching this video that this guy did. I ain't gonna say his name. You know, he knows who he is. He did this video. It was basically saying that we need to bow down to Cynthia G and rub her feet and all this and that. I mean, it just astonished me the extent to which these brothers go through to simp for Cynthia G. I mean, this guy was making all these ridiculous points, basically saying we need to bow down to Cynthia G. And I'm not going to go into detail about, trying to rebut some of the things he said, the substance of what he said. But it's just a prime example of what I've been talking about all night with these weak-ass black men, sucking up to this woman. And I know before the guy gets started, I know that you've been critical of her as well. But it's like you've done a couple of videos where you're going out of your way to simp and cape for this woman. And I just think that that's despicable, man. All right, let me go through your comments before I go on to these next subjects. Shout out to True Royal Family. She said her dear father was her master teacher. All right, I see that whenever people use profanity, YouTube hides the comment. And I'll leave that comment hidden for now. And it's a lot of black women that support, it's a lot of black women that love, appreciate, and respect black men. So I don't want anybody thinking that my commentary right now is dealing with all black women or anything like that. It's dealing specifically with this one woman by the name of Cynthia G. So Blue Black Purple asked, has Cynthia G ever addressed me, new possibilities, in any of her videos? I'm curious as to what her responses would be. I'm not aware of her ever responding to me. She may not even be aware of my channel or whatever. So I don't know if she has or hasn't. But forget the back and forth, man. I'd rather just do a video debate with her, man, on a neutral field, where I'm like on somebody else's channel debating her. I would like to do that. All right, so. And then King Leo cited examples of Tulsa, Oklahoma, Harlem, and other places were built by black men and women to have their own, black communities. Yeah, shout out to Nikki Justice again, man. I appreciate you telling people to thumbs up the video. Definitely do that. Yeah, I mean, that is a good point, Ali Emmett, about these women who love to chastise black men and, expect protection from black men at the same time. Which I think is problematic. I mean, I think it's hypocritical that you have these women that talk all this stuff about how they support patriarchy, but in practice, they don't really act like they support patriarchy. Their whole conduct and the way they treat and disrespect black men makes it abundantly clear that they're not about any kind of patriarchy. These are a lot of these people are real domineering. They don't recognize black male authority or black men, period. They have no respect for black men. And I think that unfortunately, like in her case, if you have a bad role model in terms of your father not being there to provide for you, it's easy for you to project those problems and that hatred on other black men that don't have anything to do with that situation. Yeah, they haven't stopped lynching black men. Like, black men are still killed in this society. We see examples of it all the time with police brutality, for instance, with Trayvon Martin, etc. But you can't compare what's going on today to what happened back in the day when they were able to lynch black people every day. A body can be strung up outside in public and people take photographs and sell those photographs everywhere and nothing happened on a regular basis where there's thousands of these cases. We don't live in that kind of situation. It's nowhere near on that kind of scale. And I think that it's an exaggeration for us to pretend like it is. Obviously, this problem of police brutality is a very real problem. The killing of Black people continues, but it's nowhere near on the scale that it was back then. That's my only point. And I think that the fact that it's nowhere near on the scale that it was before is a sign of progress, and that progress is a result of our struggle for liberation, the struggle of Black men and Black women. All right, so all right, so now I'm going to move on to my other subjects real quick. I'm going to share my screen with you all real quick. First, I have to pull up this image. Just bear with me 1 second. Bear with me. I'll be right back in a second. Hopefully I can pull this image up. Just bear with me 1 second. I wish I captured a picture of this image. Just bear with me a second, y'all. Okay, I don't want to hold you all up, so I'm just going to go into my commentary. I can't find the image right now. If I do find it, I may use it as a thumbnail for this video. But this guy, Michael Rapaport, for those of you who aren't familiar with him, he's a white guy who's been featured in a lot of Spike Lee's films. You know, one of the films that he was featured in is Bamboozled, a film about minstrel shows and all that kind of stuff, and blackface. So this man posted an image of Bill Cosby on his Instagram. And I think that he may have shut down his Instagram page, because I tried to actually go on his Instagram shortly after. Like earlier today, I was able to go on his Instagram and see the image, but now for some reason I can't access it. Maybe things will change and I'll be able to access it. If so, I'll post links in the description box, and I'll use the image as a thumbnail for this video. But he puts this image on his Instagram of Bill Cosby. And before I get to that image, I want to say this. You know, obviously, you all know how I feel about Bill Cosby. Those of you who follow my channel know that I support the sentence that he received. You know, I don't have any objection to his sentence. You know, I do not view him as some kind of race martyr or any of that stuff. I think that he got what he deserved. So with that being said, I don't celebrate the downfall of Bill Cosby at all. You know, I don't celebrate it. It's no cause for dancing and celebration and excitement or any of that kind of stuff. This is a tragic situation all around. It is a tragedy for us to see this icon fall like this, somebody that we looked up to as kids. Like, we looked up to him when he did the Fat Albert. We looked up to him when he did the Cosby Show, presenting positive images of Black people. We looked up to that. You know, For once, we had a television show that featured a middle-class Black family with Black professional parents and a functional family. We saw that. It was something positive. He made many of us aspire to go to African-American colleges and universities. He did that. This man, despite this sentence that he received, he did do some good in the community. He is an icon. But you have this man, Michael Rapaport, post this racist photograph of Bill Cosby. What he does is he photoshops the image. He combines Bill Cosby's face with one of these rap artists. And I think it's probably Kodak Black, one of these artists that act like a literal modern day buffoons. So they, this guy, Michael Rapaport, puts Bill Cosby's face on this guy. So it looks like Bill Cosby has dreads. It looks like Bill Cosby has tattoos on his face and tattoos on his neck. And, he has these locks in his hair that are pointed out, not like regular so-called dreadlocks, but locks pointing out, looking much like how they used to have Black pickaninnies back in the day, with their hair sticking out all crazy and stuff like that. That's how they, this man, Michael Rapaport, depicts Bill Cosby. And then he has this caption that says, Bill Cosby is already ready, get the shank. And he's using a play on words because, as you all know, 50 Cent has this saying where he says, get the strap. So he's basically making fun of the fact that Bill Cosby is going to jail. Not only is he laughing about Bill Cosby going to jail, this man is perpetuating negative stereotypes about Black people. This man is perpetuating the minstrel Black face image of Black people. That's what he's doing. This is no different from the minstrel shows, the blackface that we saw. It's no different from how they did, what's his name, O.J. Simpson, when they darkened his face on the cover of Time magazine to make him blacker, to make him more intimidating. The minstrel image is a powerful stereotype. And this man, Michael Rapaport, knows about this because he was featured in Spike Lee's film, Bamboozle, which was about blackface and minstrel shows. But yet you have this man putting up this racist image of Bill Cosby, essentially trying to niggerize Bill Cosby. A Black man that, regardless of his crimes, is an educated Black man, but he wants to depict Bill Cosby as a thug, as a hooligan, in this kind of light, as a quote unquote nigger. That's how he's trying to depict him in that imagery. So, so it's just a matter of perpetuating these stereotypes. And the fact that he would do this tells you what he really thinks about Black people. He sees many Black people this way. He sees us as buffoons. And, this is typical. You have these situations, and this is nothing new for him, before I go on. This is nothing new for this actor, Michael Rapaport. I mean, it's nothing new for him. This man already put out an image depicting a Black woman as a gorilla. And we all know about the racist stereotypes equating Black people to gorillas. This is this man's history. That man is a racist, and he's like so many of these quote-unquote white liberals who want to pretend like they're so down with Black people. They want to be wiggers, use the Black slang and act and dance and talk like they're Black and all that kind of stuff. Trying to pretend like they're down with Black people when they're really not, when they are just as racist as some of these conservatives, when they're just as racist as these damn Trump supporters and these Klansmen, etc. These people are just as racist, man. Even though he wants to speak out against Donald Trump for his racism, he doesn't realize that he's looking at his own reflection when he looks at Donald Trump. Just like a lot of these racist white people, a lot of these quote unquote liberals are some of the most racist, patronizing, elitist type people ever. Just like him, man. Just like your man Eminem. People thinking they're all down with Eminem and he's all cool with Black people because he hangs with Black people. But this is the same man that used the word nigger in his raps. The same man who disrespected Black women and all that kind of stuff in his raps. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I had to talk about, real briefly. And the last thing that I wanted to say is this, man. And that's this, man. It's just a shame that you have so many black people that are willing to be the modern day minstrel. The fact that he was able to conjure up that image using an actual black person's image tells you that so many people in our community, unfortunately, have no problem playing the role of the coon, the modern day Sambo, a modern day blackface minstrel. They don't have any problem playing that role. With all these negative images that they promote of black people with all these crazy tattoos and crazy looks and hairstyles and all that kind of stuff, crazy type of behavior and condoning all kinds of negativity like drug abuse, disrespect of black women, celebrating violence, celebrating the destruction of the black community, celebrating using drugs and selling drugs. It's a damn shame that you have black people that are willing to play this role of a minstrel. And unfortunately, those types of black people are being used as pawns by racists like this guy, Michael Rapaport. So I just had to get this off my chest, man, express my frustration about this whole situation. Again, if I find the image of, that he used of Cosby, I will include that in the, I may use it as a thumbnail for this video, and I may link articles or his Instagram in the description box. So y'all look out for that. Since I'm almost out of time, I'm not going to be able to get to your other comments about Michael Rapaport. I may, hopefully I'll have time to look at it on the playback or something. And if there's something that I feel like I need to comment to, I may do another video, because in about 10 minutes, I'm going to do another hangout with my brother. I hope that y'all can join that hangout. In that hangout, I will be talking about Freemasonry. So all of y'all conspiracy people, if y'all want to come and question my brother, who's a master Mason, feel free. I will be reading the comments in the chat room, and he will be responding to the comments. He will be talking about Freemasonry, letting y'all know what it's all about. You all have heard all the conspiracy stuff about Freemasons and the Illuminati, New World Order, and all that other stuff. And the Nation of Islam saying that the Masons are the 10 percenters, and they're the ones with knowledge of the black man being God, and they're keeping a secret and all that kind of stuff. So look out for that. Again, that's coming up at 8 o'clock. So let me go to this last point, and it's about a tragedy that took place in China. You had a African man from Zambia by the name of Crispin Mwale. This brother was dating this Chinese woman in China. They had been hanging out that evening. They went to the club. After the club, they went to the woman's apartment. And a group of Chinese men, at least 4 Chinese men, if I'm not mistaken, went to that apartment. They went into the apartment, and they pulled that brother out of the apartment and proceeded to beat that brother to death with iron rods. And while they were beating him, they were insulting him. They were making racist comments. They were talking about how no black men are allowed to date their people. They also talked about how Africa was too poor. And they went on to say that they are not allowing any black beings to be raised in their country. So they said all this racist stuff while they beat this brother to death. And, I just want to talk about this briefly. I mean, we know what's going on in Africa right now. Africa is being dominated by the Chinese. The Chinese are plundering Africa's resources to the same degree that the West has been plundering Africa's resources. They are building infrastructure. They are gaining economic control and power, political power in China as well. And as they gain this power, they're doing what most conquerors do. They are marginalizing the African man, and they are taking the African woman. you know, whenever someone conquers a people, the first thing that they do is eliminate the male competition, and they seize the women and they take over. You know, they take over the women and the children. That's what happens. And that's what you see going on in Africa right now. You see a lot of black women in Africa marrying these Chinese men, marrying the colonizer, marrying these people. And then you also have situations where they're not marrying these people, where you have these Chinese men basically having sex with these women. And okay, yeah. So my brother's running a little late, so we'll start around 8:10 or 8:15. But yeah, so you have these guys that not only, you know, you have some that marry African women, and then you have others that just smash African women and dash on these women, leave them pregnant to raise their biracial children alone. So you have that situation. And you actually have black women here on YouTube who talked about how this is somehow some kind of great thing for African women. African women are winning. How are African women winning when their continent is being taken over by some colonizers? How are African women winning when African men visiting China can be beaten in the streets like dogs and killed in the streets like dogs for even looking at a Chinese woman or being with a Chinese woman? How are African people winning? How can African women win when African men are losing? How does that work? And, you know, it's like these people, you know, some people will say, oh, that's great progress in Africa. You got Africans with Chinese. But these Chinese don't have no love for African people. As you know, they shown in this situation where this brother was beaten to death for being with a Chinese woman, for being with a Chinese woman. And, you know, I hope that those people that beat that brother, I hope that they are brought to justice. I hope they are punished to the full extent of the law, because this is outrageous. You know, regardless of my disagreement with his decision to be with some Chinese woman, I still believe that obviously he shouldn't have been killed. Obviously, he should be entitled to justice. Obviously, those people that killed that brother need to be punished severely for that crime. You know, they should get the death penalty for killing that brother. But it's like hypocrisy. These people don't have any problem taking your woman. These Chinese men have no problem taking African women. But when you look at their women, it's an issue. It's a problem. And that's how it goes with a lot of these people. They have no problem doing this. They have no problem taking your woman, but when it comes to their woman, they protect their woman. And for that reason, we shouldn't be allowing these people to be taking our women and being with our women. Period. You know, and I identify with African brothers and sisters on the continent. Those African brothers and sisters are my brothers and sisters, man. We're one people, like Marcus Garvey taught us. And, you know, Africa, as Marcus Garvey said, is for the African, man. It's not for all these foreigners and these colonizers to come there and exploit the resources. Those people need to be driven out of Africa, and African people must seize control over their own resources. That's what has to happen. Instead of Africans fleeing to Europe and staying and living in Europe and America, they need to take their skills and their education home to Africa to build Africa. So Africa will not be dependent on Chinese and all these other people, these Europeans and stuff. The African should be building his own infrastructure, not dependent on the colonizer to do so. You know, for the Chinese, they see China for the Chinese, man. And we need to see Africa for the African. Just like they don't want us being with their women, we shouldn't allow them with our women. We shouldn't allow these people to prance around with African women. And just like I'm saying that the African needs to control the resources in Africa, the black man in America needs to control the resources in America underneath his feet. We need to control the communities in which we live. You know, too often we have communities where all the businesses are owned by these Asian people. You have it to such a degree that you can't even get soul food from a black restaurant often in many of these black communities. You have soul food restaurants run by Asians. You have hair supply places run by Asians. Even your convenience stores on the corner are run by these Asians. We own very little in our Black community, and that has to change. It has to change. You had that situation in Tulsa, Oklahoma, at June's Beauty Supply, where that Asian owner punched a Black woman in the face. And we still allow these people to do business in our community while they beat our brothers to death in their streets, while they punch our sisters in their faces in America. And I know that that man is probably from Korea or whatever, but you get the point. You get the point. And this is not anything new. You know, the disrespect that we receive from these foreign-owned businesses is commonplace. There was another situation where this sister was accused of allegedly stealing some eyelashes. And you had this Asian guy choking up this sister. And I wonder if that business is still in business. These people that disrespect us should not be allowed to operate in our community. Period. We should shut them down. Not by throwing, you know, a Molotov cocktail through their windows or anything, but by refusing to spend our dollars with these people. That's what we need to do. Yeah, so it's just a matter of hypocrisy, man. You got these people that don't have any problem sleeping with African women, but let a Black man even look in their, you know, in the direction of an Asian woman. There's a problem with that. The same is true for these Arabs in our community. They have no problem, you know, getting with these Black women and disrespecting Black women, but they won't let you near their woman. They won't let you look at their woman. But yet you tolerate this. You tolerate this disrespect in some communities. But anyway, man, let me, I just had to blow off that steam. Since I have a few extra minutes, since my brother's running behind, let me just send this message to him real quick. You know, I'll go through your comments. Just 1 second. Okay. All right, so let's go through these comments. Shout out to Elaine Lloyd. I see you in there. Yeah, shout out to my man Water Sniper. Yeah, get those likes up, man. I ain't gonna keep saying it, but y'all get it. All right, so I think I'm back near where I was. Okay. Yeah, so Mark Black is correct. As I said before, he's, you know, the guy Michael Rapaport has, you know, said racist things before. This is nothing new for him. Yeah, somebody said he's been accused of having herpes and fired. Wow, I don't. Yeah, that's Nikki Justice. Are you talking about Michael Rapaport? Um, yeah, and I see Voltron Black cited examples of you know, these white guys trying to act black. You know, examples like Eminem, which I mentioned before, and Kid Rock. Yeah, Kid Rock has said some suspect things, you know, some racist type of things. I'll post, when I get a chance, I'll go through my history and try to pull my video that I did on Kid Rock a while ago and some racist stuff that he said. Just bear with me a second, y'all. I'm looking through your comments. Shout out to Elaine Lloyd again. Yeah, you're right. Hustler Life 44. Yeah, I mean, he is an example of a white person getting too comfortable, man. He thinks that because he talks all this slang, because he has black friends, that somehow that gives him a license to say and do racist type stuff. He's like one of those white people that thinks that they're so down that now they can use the N word. That's how he acts. And one part that I forgot to mention, like about that story in China, man, I just think that black men need to be with black women, man. And stop chasing these people that don't even respect you, man. These Chinese people, these other groups of people, they don't have respect for black men and black people, period. Why are you trying to be with these people? Instead of trying to be with those people, you need to accept your own, love your own, be with your own black woman. It's like somehow we got our minds so messed up that some of us actually believe that being with some white person is an upgrade, that somehow that means that you're moving on up in this world, that somehow you've reached some kind of status or success. And we see this all the time with our black entertainers, our black athletes, our black actors, and other black celebrities. The first thing that they do after they get some money is they go out there and get Becky as some symbol or some kind of trophy of success. Yeah, so it's sad that the brother died. I still believe that he should have justice. I'm not going to dismiss his death because he made a decision that I wouldn't make. He should still have justice, and those people need to be punished for that crime. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of Asians do want to be white. A lot of them want to be honorary white people, especially when they come to the States. A lot of those Asians, the first, they're like those black men that I talked about. A lot of them intermarry, whether it's Asian women with these white men or Asian men with white women. That's primarily what they go for in the States. They date outside of their race more than other groups of people. So that's a valid point. Yeah, so I want to thank y'all for tuning in. I want to say peace and blessings to each and every one of you. Again, I'll be back up at 8:15 to talk to my brother. And who knows, we may talk about some other issues as well. Me and my brother, we agree about a lot of things, but we also disagree about some things. We may get into a debate about Bill Cosby because he's on one side and I'm on the other. So y'all tune in and check that out. So with that, I want to say peace, blessings to each and every one of you. Thanks for tuning in. If you're not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. Hit that notifications bell so that you will be notified when I upload my content. And share my videos with your friends and colleagues. Peace.